This is another sign of the times, an analysis, and a commentary. Revelation chapter 18, verse 4. And I heard another voice from heaven, saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. 5. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. Keeping nuclear weapons from terrorists. The recent attacks in Belgium and elsewhere would have been catastrophic if the terrorists had gotten their hands on nuclear weapons or even a primitive dirty bomb, which combines nuclear material with conventional explosives. International efforts to prevent access to such weapons have made significant progress in recent years, but there is still a long way to go. The Nuclear Security Summit, started by President Obama in 2010, aims to address this problem by encouraging governments to secure and eliminate weapons-usable nuclear materials. The fourth of these meetings just recently concluded, with more than 50 world leaders. In the last 6 years, such meetings have persuaded 14 countries and Taiwan to give up their weapons-usable plutonium and highly enriched uranium. 12 others, including France, Russia, and the United States, have decreased their stockpiles of nuclear materials. Many states have made nuclear-related faculties more secure and have strengthened cooperation against nuclear smuggling. Nuclear detection equipment has been installed at more than 300 international border crossings, airports, and seaports. But progress is slow, even though the need for enhanced protections has become even more urgent, given the concerns that terrorist groups are seeking nuclear technology. More than 1,800 metric tons of nuclear material remains stored in 24 countries, much of it vulnerable to theft, according to former Senator Sam Nunn, co-chairman of the Nuclear Threat Initiative, a nonprofit advocacy group. An increasing number of countries are pursuing nuclear energy projects, even though they lack the legal, regulatory, and security frameworks to ensure that such programs, designed to produce power, not weapons, are protected, he said. Experts say that many officials do not believe that nuclear terrorism is a serious threat, even if the chances are small that terrorists will acquire a nuclear weapon. The fact that the potential consequences are devastating should propel summit participants to aggressively plug security gaps. Another effort to focus attention on nuclear threats is more quixotic but still valuable. The Marshall Islands, which decades ago was the site of 67 nuclear tests conducted by the United States, has brought suit at the International Court of Justice at The Hague against nations with nuclear weapons for failing to move toward disarmament as required by the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and international law in general. The suit was initially filed against all 9 nations with nuclear weapons, including the United States, Russia, France, China, and Britain, which signed the treaty, as well as India, Pakistan, Israel, and North Korea, which are not treaty members. But only Britain, India, and Pakistan have recognized the court's jurisdiction, and so are the only ones now subject to the litigation. The court is expected to decide later this year whether the suit can proceed, though no one expects the court to force the nuclear states to disarm. A verdict against them could increase pressure on them to exercise more restraint. Since the end of the Cold War, the United States and Russia have sharply reduced their nuclear arsenals, but Moscow has rejected further negotiations, and both countries are pursuing costly new modernization programs. India, Pakistan, and North Korea are also expanding their programs. There are signs that overall stockpiles of nuclear weapons and nuclear material may again increase. That very disturbing trend must be reversed. In other words, it's getting closer and closer. The United States and Russia, but the vast majority of the world's nuclear materials and weapons, have a special responsibility to lead. The relationship between the U.S. and Russia has dangerously deteriorated, raising the risk of conflict instead of cooperation. Some say the two countries must work to prevent ISIS and other violent groups from getting these materials and to avoid another costly arms race. There's no greater threat to humanity and to the promise of our children's future than the nuclear threat. Our leaders must reverse our march down this risky path. All nations must act to prevent nuclear terrorism and a new arms race. In other words, nuclear terrorism could be a world-changing event. Again, this is another sign of the end of times as we know them, transition days, which is a time of extraordinary changes, events, and happenings, because it's still about what kind of world are we leaving to the future generations, and that should be a very important question to ask. Revelation chapter 16, verse 8. And the fourth angel poured out his vial upon the sun, and power was given unto him to scorch humans with fire. 9. And humans were scorched with great heat, and blasphemed the name of God, which has power over these plagues, and they repented not to give him glory. 10. And the fifth angel poured out his vial upon the seat of the beast, and his kingdom or nation was full of darkness, and they gnawed their tongues for pain. 11. And blasphemed the God of heaven because of their pains and their sores, and repented not of their deeds. 12. And the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof was dried up, that the way of the kings and leaders of the east might be prepared. Again, it's time for the physical and spiritual manifestation of the book of Revelation, and all these are more signs. This is what I see, think, feel, and discern. This is also the warning.